Hello everyone, it's August 15th, 2017. It's Tuesday. It's Harp Tuesday. And today in this episode, I'm going to be continuing my look at electric harps. This particular harp that I'm playing is called a Firefly 2 by Wickford Harps. And YouTube no longer lets you put annotations, so I can't actually put their website right here. But search for Wickford Harps or look at it in the description of the video for a link. And I talked sort of about electric harps in general and a little bit about this harp last episode. This episode, I'm going to focus on something pretty cool, and that is using looper pedals. So a looper pedal is this idea that we can record something. So for example, I can go. I can have that constantly going. And I could actually record further loops. Of course, you can see one of the things about looper pedals, especially if you're recording multiple loops, is that the timing becomes quite essential. So basically, a looper pedal, you don't need to have an electric harp to use a looper pedal. What you need is an amplified harp, some sort of instrument where you are sending a signal. The instrument's creating some sound. That signal's traveling normally to an amp, but in this case, you're going to send it first. So the instrument cable is coming first from the harp to, in this case, this is a Boss RC1, I believe. Just a very basic looper pedal, to this looper pedal, and then the output is going from that into the amp. And of course you can put that output to maybe a wah pedal or any sort of effects pedal and create this big chain, same as electric guitars or whatever, and eventually output that sound. So as I say, if you have a pickup on your acoustic harp, you could be doing this as well. You just need to have something, some way that sound that you're creating is getting recorded, is being sent to the looper pedal. The looper pedal records it and then sends it on to the amp. So what the looper pedal does is you can press it, for example, to have it start recording what you're playing, and then press it again to finish that recording, and it'll immediately start playing that back. Now, as I say, this of course puts a certain amount of pressure on getting it right, because if you're a little uneven or something, you don't quite play evenly or mistime the start or end of the pedal pushing, it's not going to work so well. Let's see if I can give you an example of that. So okay, and again, I'm not an expert at this. I've played around a little bit. I haven't done a ton of playing around with this, so bear with me as I try to make sure everything works correctly. So if we go, let's try that same thing. Oh, I think I pressed that a little bit too late, right? See, there's a slight delay, right, at the end of that loop. If I'm going boom, 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 I have to press the pedal again right in rhythm. Otherwise, as you heard, there's that little bit of a gap at the end of the loop before we start again. So you might think that, sorry, just trying to erase that, there we are. You might think, oh great, hey, it records and plays it back, I don't have to play that again. But there is that, pressure in a live performance to make sure you get that loop right the first time through. I think the first person I heard doing looper performances, and was the cellist Zoe Keating. She does some amazing stuff. Check her out. And of course, Deborah Hansen-Conant uses a looper pedal in some of her songs. It's a cool is a cool way to create some extra sound and do some extra effects and stuff. Now, I think it's obviously particularly effective if you're playing something like the cello, where yes, you can play double stops, you can play chords, but it's challenging, and most of the time you might be just playing single notes. So with a looper pedal, you get to kind of create the whole orchestra, right? You can record all these extra parts. On the harp and the piano, we have that ability in a sense already by, playing up to 8 notes at a time. But that doesn't mean we can't do cool things with it. Now, this particular pedal, this RC1, is just a pretty basic one. So I can record a loop. I can record an infinite number of additional overdubs on that loop. And I can erase those overdubs, but I can't, for example, record a loop, then record another loop and say, stop that first loop, keep the second loop playing, record another loop, etc. There are much, fancier, more expensive looper pedals that would let you record, record and control a separate loop and another separate loop and another separate loop. If this is something that you're really getting into. Let me give you another example before I keep talking. So looper pedals, of course, work great if we're doing something that keeps on looping, that keeps on doing, the same chord sequence. And here's a classic example of that. Anyway, just playing around. Obviously, the canon in D, it keeps repeating that same chord sequence. So you could record. I just did the. I can just play that again. Just recorded that, and then you could. In this case, I was just improvising over it. A lot of what I'm going to be doing today is just improvising. But obviously you can also plan out and say, okay, I'm going to record this exact sequence, and then I'm going to play this exact sequence over that, and maybe, record that as well, and plan out a really detailed piece. Or you can use it again, just kind of as a neat way to kind of back up maybe an improvisation, because you can provide the framework and then riff off of that. And again, the timing, trying to make sure that timing, then when you're playing along with it, trying to keep that timing. Of course, you're then forced to, you can't necessarily have too much elasticity then in your tempo when you're doing a looper pedal piece, because the looper pedals, the loop that you recorded is not necessarily going to wait for you if this time you want to just take a little bit of extra time. But we can kind of play around a little bit with that same idea, say, of an opera singer, where the orchestra is keeping a steady pulse, but the opera singer is like doing some shaping and phrasing above that steady pulse, and pushing and pulling, and yet managing to line up, especially with maybe the bigger beats. I'm going to try another little example here. So let me erase this. Excellent. And let's get into the key of C. So, anything that's going to come through the amp, we can record. So we can do some percussive type effects as well. So, and of course, one of the challenges is sometimes I just wasn't able to actually hear very well over what I was playing, the loop. So I was like, okay, am I actually together? Are we staying in time? It's a great way to kind of work on one's internal rhythm then, to of course try and record that loop consistently and then play along with it consistently. So kind of cool. Definitely a fun thing to do. Let me give you one more example of just maybe something a little less rhythmic, a little freer. But again, you have to kind of, and if you're improvising, if you're just kind of having fun, you want to be able to, you know what? I don't think you want to record too long a loop because you want to remember what you did as it repeats, so that when you play along with it, you can do something that is appropriate. Okay, let me erase that and let's see. Actually, wasn't exactly what I wanted. Oops. There we go. Okay. fun thing to play around with. Definitely a bit of a challenge sometimes in terms of timing, and again, something that I've played around with a little bit, but I haven't done a ton of work on, and there's lots more to explore. But again, that basic idea of being able to play something and record it, and then have that keep looping and repeating as you play more. And again, I didn't do that much here, but you can record something and then record something more on top of that, and record something more on top of that, and more on that, so you get this. You could have this huge layered texture. Again, that's something maybe particularly effective if you're playing a single note instrument, so that you can create that whole orchestra effect, that whole, an rich harmonic effect. Here we do have a bunch of notes, but again you can take advantage of doing some extra sounds as long as they're going to come through the amp. You can record them. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. And again, this is something you don't have to have an electric harp. If you have a pickup on your harp and you have an amp, you can get a looper pedal and play around with this yourself. So hope you've enjoyed this. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Cheers.